it's Ginger from Stamping the Cape, and I'm here with my second Stamp Club project for July, and it's this fun little triangular box, and I'm using the Grandma's House stamp set this month. I did also my In Color Club card was done with this, and the sentiment on here is congratulations on the birth of your beautiful new grandbaby. And I thought it would be kind of a fun thing to give to a friend who is going to be either a grandmother for the first time, second time, third time, whatever. Because I know from experience, one of the things you can always use as a grandmother, have on hand, is a Tide-to-Go stain stick. There's lots of spills and lots of little faux pas, so it's good to have one in your purse. You take them out for ice cream, and the next thing you know, you get a mess. So anyway, I just thought that would be a cute little gift to give to someone. So the first thing we're going to do is I have a piece of 3.5 by 7 inch Highland Heather cardstock, which I've scored at 1 inch, 2 inches, 3 inches, and then 6 7/8, and 7/8 and 6 1/8. And there'll be a PDF on my blog with all the measurements and score lines and whatnot, so you don't have to worry about that. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to burnish my score. Well, actually, no. The first thing I'm going to do is stamp. Excuse me. Okay, so what we have to figure out is what's going to be the front of our box. And I usually do a template so that I know where I'm supposed to cut and whatnot, and I keep that on hand. So on my template, the part that's going to be the front of the box is going to be where the lid is. Jeepers, grow. Where the lid is. It's so hot here. Summer is officially on Cape Cod. It's hot and humid, and I'm trying to get these videos done before it gets unbearable, because I can't put my room air conditioner on because you wouldn't be able to hear me. So what we're going to do is this piece, oops, got it backwards. This piece, actually I'm going to do it this way because I want that side. So this piece right here, the second from the top, that's going to be our focal point. That's going to be the front of the box. So what I'm doing is I'm taking the Highland Heather ink, and I'm taking 2 of the stamps from the set. This is the little house and the little flowers, and I'm first going to stamp the house in sort of the middle, and it's going to hang over. So I'm going to try to put the focus up, and a lot of this is going to get covered up anyway, so you don't have to be all really, in fact, you could just do all flowers because most of this house gets covered up. But anyway, and so I'm just going to put the main part of the house with the heart right there in the center, and then I'm going to use the flowers to stamp on either side. And as I said, a lot of this gets covered up because we're going to be putting a piece of DSP to add some additional interest on here. So it's up to you. Like I said, you could do flowers all across, you could do the house all across, and then I have the little tiny heart that I'm just going to fill in these little hearts in space across the sky, with all the love from a grandmother coming out of it. I have to say, I'm almost ashamed to say I was kind of brought into grandmotherhood dragging my feet, because I think I thought, oh God, once you're a grandmother, it means you're old. And it was so hard for me to accept that. I was like, I am not ready. But I love my granddaughter. She's priceless, and I wouldn't change it in any way. So let me get those out of the way. And we don't need that ink anymore. So now I can burnish my score lines. And actually, I am called Gigi. My son wanted me to be called Grammy like my mother was, and my mom has passed some time ago. And I said, I will never live up to your grandmother. I just can't, I said, why don't we let her figure out what to call me? So they were calling me Grammy, and as she started to talk, it started coming out like Gigi, and I said, let's go with that, because I know there are other people that get called Gigi, so I'm good with that. So, okay, so what we're going to do first is, as I said, this is going to be the lid end of the box. So if you look at my template, I'm cutting these little triangular pieces off. That's going to be the bottom. So the first thing I want to do is I want to cut off this one little rectangle, and actually you can cut this at a little bit of an angle first. It'll make it a little bit cleaner when cutting your box. And then what I did was, if you want to measure, you can measure, you know, a half inch, but I just eyeballed it, and I went to what I thought was the center, put my scissors straight up and down, and then I just turned my scissors towards that corner of the score line there and cut. And then I went back to this side where the point is down here, lined it up with the corner again of that score line, and just cut. Same thing, halfway mark between the two scores, turn my scissors, cut. Same thing, lining up with this point to the score line, cut straight across, and then one last time in the middle and the halfway point, turning my scissors towards that point, and the last cut, we're just going to that edge. So if you're a real perfectionist, you can, you know, measure it and whatnot, but it worked for me, so that's what I'm doing. So then on the top, this is our top portion. We're going to be cutting off this little edge and this square in its entirety, and I usually, when I cut off the score line part, because I don't like that little bump. I think it's unattractive. And I do the same thing on this lid. I'm going to cut just to the side of that score line so I can cut it off. I don't like those bumps. And then we're just going to cut this one off as well. Again, I'm cutting off that score line. The score line bump, I should say. And the same thing here. I'm cutting off that score line bump. All right. Oh, here we go with the all rights again. And actually, I think I still left a little bit of that score line. Yeah, I'm just going to trim that end just to get that score line off. Okay, so now we're going to create our own little manual score line, and I should have brought my ruler over, but and actually, I'm just going to run and get it real quick. And if I can find it, because I never can find what I need. There it is. Okay, so this one I am going to measure because I do want to try to make my lid a little accurate. So I'm just going to, because it's just a hair under an inch, because now I've trimmed off the edge. So I'm just going to put a little mark right on the ½ inch of that little tab. So I've just marked it right there. You can use a pencil. I just used the end of my bone folder. But from that point to this corner, I want to score, because we're going to make a flap for the lid. And just press it in there. And I'm going to go the same way from here to that corner. There. So hopefully that will fit. And then I'm just going to, oops, stray dimension thing. I'm going to trim this off a little bit here just to create a small flap. And then what I'm also going to do is I'm going to angle this similar to this angle, but not as drastic, just to cut off that point a little bit. So hopefully you can see what I'm doing there. I'm just making this a little diagonal here, like that. So you don't have that sharp point on the end. So now we can put the box together. I'm going to put tear and tape along the edge of the score line. You can also use the Tombow liquid glue, which actually in some cases could be better if you're not great with tear and tape, because once you seal this box up with tear and tape, you're not going to be able to move it if you're not lined up perfectly. Whereas with the the multi-purpose liquid glue, you can move it a little bit and have a chance to shift it around before you press it firmly in place. So I'm going to very carefully line up that, and I'm not going to push it down really firm until I'm comfortable with where my ends meet, because if I push it down too hard and try to pull it apart, then I'm going to rip my box. So there we go. Now I can really seal that up. Okay. So like I said, this is going to be the front of our box. And so as a result, since the lid, and let me burnish these flaps on the lid. And we'll check and see, make sure this closes properly. Fingers crossed. Perfect. All right, great. So like I said, this is going to be the lid, this is going to be the front. So when I do these flaps, and you may have to trim them off a bit. As you can see, this little point I can trim off. And actually, I may adjust the measurements so you won't have to do this. But so you're going to fold these, and this is going to be your last flap to close. So that's the one we're going to want to put tear and tape. And actually, I think that's fine. All you have to do is trim off these little points on the end of these two flaps. Just cut off the nib on the end. Keep this one intact because that will fully cover it. So I'm going to put my tear and tape on that piece. Where is it? There we go. Just going to cut a little piece off here. I'm going to stick that right down the center. And I'm not worried that it's hanging over, because once I tear this piece off, I can roll back that tape. Just don't have it stick to anything else in the meantime. But I don't know if you can see that where the tape is hanging over, I can just bend it back to where I want it to be back here. So we're going to go 1, 2, and then this will be our last flap there. So there's our box. So I have a this is a 1.5 by 3.5 piece of the Designer Series paper. Is you can put your snail on this. I'll put snail here and here, and I'm going to put snail on one end because that's going to be my flap over. I want this to be in a position where the Designer Series paper is going to be behind it here, and it's going to overlap a little bit, the Designer Series paper. So I'm going to have it longer here and shorter there. We'll see how that works. And I've got my edge with the extra tape here, so that's going to overlap. And we might have to use a stronger tape because this, I don't know if it's my humidity or what, but. And if this hangs over a little bit, you know what, just take your scissors and you can trim off a little bit if you don't want it, so it looks a little neater. So we'll just trim that off. But you might want to try tear and tape because, as I said, the humidity I think is affecting my snail right now. So I wouldn't want this to come off. So there's the front of your box right here. Remember, this is where your main sentiment is. And I'm putting this on with dimensionals. We're just going to put a couple of dimensionals on the back. And attach that. And I'm going to just put the heart on with the glue dot. Rather than playing around with another dimensional. So we'll just stick a glue dot on the back there. Stick that in there. And then I'm taking some of the braided twine, and I'm making a bow. We'll stick that on for a final touch. And I'm doing it right off the spool. I think you save a little bit when you do it that way. So just trim those edges up, and I'm going to use a glue dot again to stick this on. Just a little finishing touch there. There, so there you go. So here's your little grandmother fun gift for the new grandmother, the experienced grandmother, or whoever. But there you go. So I hope you like that, and I've got one more project for you for the card. This was my first project, this little box that holds a grandma's cookie package inside, and then I'm going to be coming back with this card for you to make, so that completes your 3 projects. And I have my Christmas Stamp-A-Stack, my fall Christmas Stamp-A-Stack coming up. There's information on my blog about that. We'll be doing, these 2 cards. That'll be there. Remember, this is bonus days. When you spend $50, you earn a $5 coupon towards a purchase next month. It's a great time to also sign up with Stampin' Up! If you'd like a lot of the products that are in the catalog, and you'd like to get a little more, for $99 you can sign up and get $30 more than you normally would. So you get to pick $155 in products, you get free shipping on your kit, and there's no commitment to do workshops. You can just be a hobby demo. You can contact me for more information, or go to my blog. I have all the information there. So thanks for watching, and I'll be back with our last project.